The wind howled across the empty plains, as if the earth itself mourned for the souls it had lost. A pale sun hung low above the western horizon, painting the sky in faded orange. She stood there, trembling beside the old wooden fence, her coat brushing against the dust, her eyes filled with questions that time never answered. Then she saw him, the same cowboy she once thought she'd never see again, riding out of the haze like a ghost returning from a forgotten war. His hat cast a shadow over his face, but she recognized that slow, steady ride, the way he sat in the saddle as if the wind itself carried his pain. For a moment the world went still. Her lips parted, her breath caught somewhere between disbelief and hope. "Why did you come back for me?" she whispered, her voice barely strong enough to carry past the wind. He stopped his horse, looked down at her with eyes that had seen too much silence, and said in that deep, gravelled tone, "Because you needed someone." The words hung heavy, like the final line of a story neither of them wanted to end. She remembered the night he left, the rain falling hard, his boots echoing against the porch, her heart breaking with every step he took away. Back then she told herself she didn't need him, that love was just another wound that never healed. But as the seasons turned and the nights grew colder, she realized it wasn't love that hurt, it was the emptiness he left behind. She tried to fill it with work, with whiskey, with silence, but none of it took away the sound of his voice in her mind or the warmth of his hand that once pulled her close under the falling rain. And now, as he stood before her again, everything she'd buried rose like dust in the wind. He dismounted slowly, his boots pressing into the dry earth. The years had changed him. There were scars on his hands, lines around his eyes, and a heaviness in his walk that only men who've lost something precious ever carry. "You shouldn't have come," she said, though her heart whispered the opposite. He gave a faint smile, the kind that never reaches the eyes. "Maybe not, but I couldn't leave you out here fighting your battles alone." She looked away, her eyes wet, her voice trembling. "I told you I could handle it." He stepped closer, his voice low. "I know, but I've learned that being strong don't mean facing everything by yourself." For a long moment neither spoke. The prairie stretched endless behind them, and the sound of a lone crow broke the silence. She wanted to tell him about the nights she waited by the window, the letters she never sent, the tears she wiped away before anyone saw, but all that came out was a whisper. "I thought you forgot me." He shook his head. "I tried. Lord knows I tried. But some folks you don't forget. You just learn to live with the ache." The honesty in his tone broke something inside her. She took a step forward, and for the first time in years, their eyes met not as strangers, but as two souls who'd walked through different kinds of loneliness, only to find each other again at the edge of it. She reached for his hand, rough, warm, familiar. "You still ride the same horse?" she asked softly, trying to mask her trembling heart with small talk. He chuckled lightly, a sound that melted through the cold air. "Old Clyde's slower now, but he still knows his way home." She smiled faintly. "Guess we all do." For a second, time seemed to stop. The dust, the light, the silence, all caught in a quiet pause that felt like forgiveness. As the sun dipped lower, they sat by the fence side by side, watching the light fade into the horizon. He spoke first. "You know, I thought I could outrun my past. Thought if I kept moving, it wouldn't catch up." She looked at him with gentle eyes. "And did it?" he sighed. "Yeah, it found me right back here, where I left you." She turned away, brushing a tear before he saw it. "Maybe that's what love does. Waits till you've run far, enough to realize you were only going in circles." He looked at her then, really looked at her, and for a moment, all the years between them vanished. Night settled quietly, stars beginning to scatter across the dark sky. The air grew colder, but neither moved. They didn't need to. Words had done their part. Silence carried the rest. He reached into his coat and pulled out an old silver locket, the one she'd given him long ago before everything fell apart. "You kept it?" she whispered. He nodded. "Couldn't throw it away. Every time I tried, it felt like losing. The only piece of peace I had left." Tears filled her eyes again. "You fool." she said softly, smiling through the ache. You were never meant to carry that alone. When the wind picked up again, he stood, offering his hand. Come on, he said gently. There's a storm brewing. Let's get you home. She hesitated, looking toward the dark sky, then back at him. Home, she repeated quietly, as if the word itself had forgotten its meaning. But when she placed her hand in his, she realized it never meant a place, it meant him. As they walked toward the barn, lightning flickered across the horizon, and for the first time in a long while, she felt something she hadn't dared to feel in years, hope. That night, as rain began to fall softly over the land, she stood by the window, watching him saddle down the horses, his coat soaked but his spirit unbroken. She realized then that the man who once left to find himself had come back to find her. And maybe, just maybe, that was what love really was. Not a promise kept, but a soul that returns when you need it the most.